Humanity invented smartphones, self-driving cars, and AI, and somehow people still look directly into a moving train like it personally offended them. Somewhere out there right now, a grown adult is ignoring three warning signs, a flashing red light, and the basic survival instincts evolution spent millions of years developing, all because they thought, nah, I got this. And the beautiful part is that cameras are everywhere now, which means every catastrophic brain malfunction gets preserved forever, like a digital museum of bad decisions. What you're about to see isn't bad luck. It's confidence weaponized against common sense. And somehow, the deeper you go, the worse humanity starts to look. 1. A guy at a gas station decided the fastest way to check if his lighter still worked was to test it directly next to the fuel pump, because apparently reading the giant "no smoking" sign felt too much like government oppression. The security footage looks like a deleted scene from an action movie written by a man who thinks Monster Energy counts as a personality trait. You can literally see nearby people slowly backing away while this human warning label flicks the lighter over and over like he's trying to summon a demon. Then, boom. Not a massive explosion, thankfully, but enough of a fireball to instantly transform him from confident alpha male into terrified raccoon caught in a kitchen. And the best part? After the flames burst up, he slapped at them with his bare hands like he was fighting aggressive birthday candles. Humanity really gave certain people opposable thumbs way too early in the evolutionary process. 2. I watched footage of a tourist leaning over the railing at a zoo trying to impress his girlfriend by connecting with a tiger. And by connecting, I mean dangling his arm over a 600-pound apex predator like he was feeding coins into a parking meter. Somewhere along the line, people started confusing wild animals with Disney side characters. This man genuinely thought the tiger was going to react like Simba in The Lion King instead of like a tiger. The animal lunged, the guy screamed, and suddenly this romantic safari moment turned into the world's fastest lesson on the food chain. His girlfriend went from filming proudly to shrieking like she'd just watched her Wi-Fi router explode. And honestly, zoo employees deserve combat pay at this point. Imagine spending your entire career explaining to adults that giant carnivores are not emotionally available. 3. A man in a grocery store somehow looked at a bright yellow wet floor sign and interpreted it as a personal challenge from the universe. You can actually see him notice the sign, pause dramatically, and then keep walking with the confidence of a motivational speaker selling crypto in 2021. 2 seconds later, his feet launched in opposite directions like a cartoon character discovering gravity for the first time. The guy didn't just fall, he rotated. His shopping basket flew through the air, oranges rolled across the aisle, and one terrified employee watched the whole thing unfold with the exhausted expression of someone who has truly lost faith in humanity. And naturally, after creating a human fireworks display in the dairy section, this man stood up angry at the floor. Not himself, the floor, because modern society has fully committed to the idea that consequences are basically hate crimes now. 4. Somebody filmed a guy trying to take a selfie during a thunderstorm while standing under a tree holding a metal golf club. At that point, you're not a human being anymore. You're a rejected side quest in a Final Destination movie. This man looked at lightning actively splitting the sky apart and thought, you know what this moment needs? Me posing like I just won the Masters. The storm is roaring, people are running for shelter, and this genius is standing there grinning into his phone like Thor's unemployed cousin. Then lightning struck nearby, and the guy dropped the club so fast you'd think God himself had sent him a text message saying, "Cut it out." The best part is, the video ends with him laughing nervously, like he survived some quirky little misunderstanding, instead of narrowly avoiding becoming a Wikipedia footnote under reasons warning labels exist. 5. A security camera caught a guy trying to carry an entire mattress on top of a tiny scooter like he was transporting IKEA furniture through a Mario Kart level. And I really want to understand the confidence here, because at no point during this operation did his brain whisper, Maybe physics has some concerns. The mattress immediately turned into a giant sail the second he hit the street. Cars were swerving, pedestrians were panicking, and this man was wobbling down the road, looking like a budget Batman gliding toward bankruptcy. Then a gust of wind hit, the mattress flipped backward, and he disappeared underneath it completely. For about 5 seconds, all traffic just watched a moving rectangle scrape across the asphalt while one shoe stuck out from underneath like a crime scene in a cartoon. Somewhere out there, a Honda Civic lost a side mirror because one man refused to pay delivery fees. 6. I saw footage of a guy trying to impress people at a backyard barbecue by jumping over the grill. Not near the grill, over it. Because apparently, adulthood is just middle school with beer and lower cartilage density. The man backed up like an Olympic athlete preparing for history, while everyone around him had the exact expression people have before fireworks explode sideways. He sprinted, jumped, clipped the edge of the grill with his foot, and immediately transformed into a flaming yard sale. Hot dogs launched into the grass, burgers flew like frisbees, and one folding chair collapsed in sympathy. The guy hit the ground rolling, while somebody screamed, "Save the cooler," which honestly tells you everything about modern priorities. And after all that, he still stood up pretending he was fine. Nothing says masculinity like third-degree burns, and pretending your leg hair was optional anyway. 7. A woman at an aquarium decided the safety barrier around the shark tank was ruining her photo aesthetic, which is exactly the kind of sentence that proves civilization peaked sometime around 1998. She climbed over the railing, holding her phone like an influencer, documenting the collapse of common sense in real time. Everyone nearby started yelling, but she was too busy doing duck lips for social media validation, worth approximately 6 likes and one comment from a bot named CryptoKing47. Then she slipped, not fully into the tank, thankfully, but enough to dangle halfway over the water, while suddenly remembering sharks are not decorative mood lighting. The panic on her face was incredible. One second she's posing like she owns the ocean, the next she's clinging to the rail screaming, like the Titanic just hit the iceberg again. And somewhere beneath her, a shark was probably thinking, wow, humans really are getting easier to catch. 8. One guy filmed himself trying to punch through a car window because he saw it in an action movie. This is what happens when people think watching 3 Jason Statham clips on YouTube counts as combat training. He squared up beside the car while his friends hyped him up like they were about to witness greatness instead of an orthopedic consultation. Then he punched the glass with full force and immediately folded like a lawn chair. The window didn't even crack. The car barely acknowledged him. Meanwhile, this genius staggered backward, clutching his hand, making the exact noises your Wi-Fi router makes before disconnecting forever. And the best part? His friends kept filming. Nobody helped. Modern friendship is basically just standing nearby, recording evidence while somebody voluntarily ruins their own wrist for content. Somewhere inside that car alarm was the only intelligent voice involved in the entire situation. 9. I watched a man attempt to wrestle an inflatable pool toy during strong beach winds, and honestly, it looked less like recreation and more like a nature documentary about dominance. The inflatable unicorn caught one gust of wind and immediately became sentient. This thing dragged the guy across the sand while children screamed, and nearby tourists watched like they'd accidentally wandered into a live-action episode of Looney Tunes. He refused to let go too, which is the most dad behavior imaginable. This became personal. At one point, the inflatable actually lifted into the air with him attached to it for a second, turning him into the world's least majestic superhero. Imagine explaining to hospital staff that your injuries came from losing a fist fight with a giant plastic horse. Somewhere nearby, seagulls were probably judging the entire species. 10. A delivery driver got caught on camera trying to throw a package onto a second-floor balcony instead of walking up the stairs, which already tells you this man had mentally quit his job somewhere around sunrise. He wound up like an NFL quarterback at the Super Bowl, launched the box into the air, and immediately discovered that depth perception is not a suggestion. The package smashed directly into the balcony railing and exploded open midair like a sad little piñata of disappointment. Items rained down onto the driveway, while the driver just stood there staring at the disaster with the blank expression of a man calculating whether unemployment might actually be peaceful. Then, unbelievably, he looked around to see if anyone noticed. My brother in Christ, the Ring camera noticed. The internet noticed. Half the planet is about to notice. 11. A guy in a gym tried to deadlift more weight than professional athletes because two women walked past him for approximately 4 seconds. Male ego truly is one of Earth's most renewable energy sources. You can literally see the moment his brain stopped functioning. Suddenly, this man who looked physically constructed from mozzarella cheese decided he was built like a Marvel superhero. He loaded the bar with enough plates to bend space-time itself, while his friend filmed vertically for TikTok immortality. Then came the lift attempt. His back curved like a frightened shrimp. His face turned purple, and the bar didn't move even 1 inch. Not one. The only thing that lifted was the collective concern of everyone nearby. And after failing spectacularly, he nodded like the weight was somehow defective. Sure, clearly gravity was just being toxic today. 12. A tourist at Yellowstone ignored every warning sign imaginable to get close to a bison for a selfie. At this point, national parks should honestly replace signs with giant billboards saying, "The animals are bigger than your confidence." This guy crept toward the bison, smiling into his phone, while nearby families slowly backed away like civilians spotting the villain in a horror movie. And the bison looked annoyed immediately. You know that exhausted expression customer service workers get after dealing with one too many idiots? The bison had that exact face. Then the animal charged. Suddenly, this brave wildlife photographer turned into Usain Bolt wearing cargo shorts. The footage is incredible because you can actually hear people laughing while he runs for his life. And honestly, fair. If you ignore 15 warning signs and approach a creature built like a hairy pickup truck, you deserve to get cardio whether you wanted it or not. 13. One man tried to deep fry a turkey indoors during Thanksgiving, proving once again that holidays are just family traditions wrapped around preventable emergencies. He lowered the turkey into boiling oil way too fast, and instantly the kitchen transformed into a fire-based gender reveal party. Flames shot to the ceiling, relatives screamed, and someone's aunt kept holding the phone vertically because apparently documenting disaster is more important than survival now. The guy's reaction was even better. Instead of turning the fryer off, he panicked and threw water on the grease fire like he was trying to unlock an achievement called Speedrun Your Insurance Claim. The fireball doubled instantly. At that moment, the entire room learned what science teachers have been begging humanity to understand since the invention of combustion. Somewhere outside, neighbors were probably watching smoke pour from the windows thinking, "Yep, Thanksgiving again." 14. A guy at a wedding decided the dance floor needed more energy, which is always the opening sentence to a terrible decision. So naturally, he attempted a backflip after what looked like 12 vodka sodas and 0 surviving brain cells. The DJ even stopped for a second like his instincts were trying to warn the species. But no, this man launched himself backward with the confidence of a gymnast and the coordination of a shopping cart missing one wheel. He under-rotated instantly and crashed through a decorative table covered in champagne glasses. The sound alone was incredible. It was like a chandelier filing for divorce. Guests gasped, one bridesmaid started crying, laughing, and the groom had the 1,000-yard stare of a man realizing his wedding video now included a live concussion. And somehow the backflipping idiot still gave a thumbs up from the floor, because embarrassment only exists in people with functioning shame receptors. 15. I watched security footage of a guy trying to rob a convenience store while wearing a shirt with his own full name printed across the back. Not a nickname, not initials. His entire legal government identity in giant letters like he was competing in the Olympics for felony enthusiasm. The cashier looked confused before looking genuinely offended by how little effort was involved. This criminal demanded money while simultaneously dressed like a LinkedIn profile picture, and somehow it got worse. During the robbery, he dropped his wallet. Then he stopped to pick it up. Then he dropped his phone. At this point, the police probably felt insulted having to investigate something this easy. Detectives trained for years solving complex cases only to encounter a suspect who essentially mailed himself to prison with tracking information included. Honestly, if stupidity burned calories, this guy would have vanished into another dimension. 16. A guy at an airport somehow missed the moving walkway entirely and stepped straight onto the side rail like he thought gravity was an optional subscription service. The footage is incredible because you can see his brain trying to recover in real time. 1 second, he's confidently power walking with a coffee and carry on like a businessman in a pharmaceutical commercial. The next, he's airborne. The coffee launched into orbit, the suitcase flipped open mid-slide, and socks scattered across the terminal like he'd been attacked by a TSA-sponsored tornado. And absolutely nobody helped immediately because modern society has collectively agreed that if someone falls in public, we need at least 3 seconds to laugh first. The man stood up furious too, glaring at the walkway like it betrayed him personally. Sir, the conveyor belt didn't ambush you. You simply lost a fistfight with flooring technology designed for exhausted tourists and toddlers. 17. I watched a guy try to impress his friends by opening a champagne bottle with a sword at a rooftop party because apparently regular alcohol consumption no longer provides enough opportunities for injury. He lined the blade up dramatically like he was Napoleon preparing for battle instead of Chad from accounting preparing for a concussion. Everyone around him started filming immediately, which is the universal sign that nobody intends to stop the disaster anymore. Then he swung too hard, missed the bottleneck completely, and shattered the entire thing in his own hand. Champagne exploded everywhere while guests ducked behind patio furniture like civilians in an action movie. And the guy just stood there blinking in confusion, holding the sword and bleeding slightly, probably wondering why YouTube tutorials skipped the "Don't be deeply stupid" chapter. Somewhere nearby, one sober person quietly realized they desperately needed new friends. 18. A security camera caught a man trying to steal a bicycle while still wearing rollerblades, which already feels like a rejected Mr. Bean plotline. He grabbed the bike, pushed off dramatically, and immediately discovered that balancing stolen transportation while standing on tiny wheels requires at least one functioning survival instinct. The guy swerved straight into a parked trash can, bounced off it like a confused pinball, then slowly tipped over into a hedge while the bike landed on top of him. And somehow, the most embarrassing part wasn't even the crash. It was the fact that two elderly women walking nearby barely reacted. They just watch silently with the exhausted energy of people who've accepted that civilization is circling the drain. One of them actually kept eating yogurt while this grown man disappeared shrub first into landscaping. Honestly, if strangers stop being surprised by your behavior, it may be time to reevaluate your life choices. 19. I saw footage of a man trying to pet a wild moose beside a highway because apparently the internet has convinced people every large animal is just a Labrador with better branding. The moose looked deeply offended from the beginning. You could practically hear it thinking, "Why are humans like this?" But this guy kept approaching slowly with both hands out like he was greeting a celebrity at Comic-Con. Then the moose lunged forward, and suddenly this fearless wildlife enthusiast transformed into the fastest middle-aged sprinter North America has ever produced. The panic was immediate. His sandals flew off, his phone hit the pavement, and he dove behind a car screaming while the moose casually stood there chewing leaves like nothing happened, which honestly made it worse. Imagine being humiliated by an animal that didn't even respect you enough to continue the attack. Nature itself looked disappointed. 20. One woman got caught on camera trying to back her SUV out of a parking spot while staring exclusively at the backup camera screen like it was a sacred prophecy from the gods. She trusted that little monitor more than actual eyesight, mirrors, spatial awareness, or common sense. And naturally, she backed directly into a shopping cart, return at full confident speed. The impact startled her so badly she hit the gas instead of the brake, which upgraded the situation from minor inconvenience to insurance adjuster opens whiskey bottle. Metal crunched, carts exploded across the lot, and one random pedestrian physically turned around and walked the other direction like he simply couldn't emotionally participate anymore. The driver stepped out afterward looking genuinely betrayed, as though technology had personally lied to her. Somewhere deep inside that SUV, the GPS was probably recalculating her route away from adulthood. 21. I watched a guy attempt to jump onto a moving escalator railing and slide down it like he was starring in an early 2000s skateboard commercial. What actually happened looked more like a hostage situation involving denim and poor impulse control. He jumped, lost balance instantly, and folded sideways onto the railing with the grace of dropped furniture. Then gravity took over. The man slid halfway down while making sounds I usually associate with furniture being dragged across tile floors. Meanwhile, shoppers nearby pretended not to look, which is humanity's favorite public activity, right after pretending Bluetooth headphones make us emotionally unavailable. Eventually, he tumbled off the railing completely and landed in a decorative plant, and somehow, after all that, he still tried to stand up casually like this was part of the stunt. Sir, you just got physically rejected by architecture. 22. A guy at a baseball game tried catching a foul ball with a tray full of nachos still in his hands because masculinity apparently means refusing to set down melted cheese during moments of crisis. The ball flew toward him, the crowd stood up cheering, and for one glorious second, this man believed he was about to become a stadium legend. Instead, the ball smashed directly into the nachos, launching cheese onto at least four innocent people nearby. One woman took jalapenos to the forehead like battlefield shrapnel, and the guy's reaction was somehow even worse. He looked devastated about the food, not the humiliation. Priorities. Security footage later showed him scraping surviving chips back into the tray while children stared at him, the way Victorian peasants probably stared at plague victims. Somewhere overhead, the stadium announcer was probably fighting for his life, trying not to laugh into the microphone. 23. I saw a man try to film a TikTok dance on top of a restaurant table while the place was still fully open for business, which honestly feels like the final stage of internet poisoning. The music starts. He begins flailing around with the confidence of somebody who's never once encountered shame, and nearby diners slowly stop eating to witness the collapse of civilization in real time. Then the table snapped. Completely. One second he's dancing, the next he's buried in breadsticks and shattered wood like a failed magician. Drinks spilled everywhere. Somebody screamed, and the restaurant manager appeared instantly with the terrifying speed only unlocked by years of dealing with public stupidity. And the dancer still asked if anybody got the clip. That's where we are as a species now. Public humiliation isn't even embarrassing anymore unless the camera angle looked bad. 24. A security camera outside a gym caught a guy flexing in front of his own reflection so aggressively that he walked straight into a glass door. Not bumped into it, walked directly into it with the determination of a man trying to return to his home planet. You can actually see him admiring his arms while adjusting his tank top like he's auditioning to become a protein powder flavor. Then, smack, full face against the glass. The noise echoed through the lobby like somebody threw a ham at a windshield, and somehow he immediately looked around to see if anyone noticed. My brother, the entire building noticed. The receptionist noticed. The vending machine noticed. Even the automatic door seemed embarrassed on his behalf. Yet instead of accepting defeat, he nodded confidently and kept walking like nothing happened, which is honestly the purest form of gym culture imaginable. Never let reality interrupt the delusion. 25. A guy tried proposing to his girlfriend on a paddleboard because social media convinced everyone normal romance isn't valid unless there's a high probability of drowning involved. He got down on one knee in the middle of the lake while nearby tourists filmed the moment like they sensed disaster approaching through the force. And disaster delivered immediately. The paddleboard tilted, the ring box flew into the air, and both of them disappeared into the water with the exact elegance of two raccoons falling out of a dumpster. The silence afterward was incredible. You could hear ducks. Eventually, the guy resurfaced, still trying to propose while treading water like a deeply committed idiot. Meanwhile, the girlfriend was screaming about the ring sinking to the bottom of the lake forever. Honestly, nothing captures modern relationships better than a man risking aquatic bankruptcy for an Instagram moment. 26. I watched a guy attempt to carry 12 beers, 2 pizzas, and a folding chair into a football stadium in one trip because men would rather dislocate both shoulders than admit they need multiple journeys. This is universal male behavior. You could hand us 17 grocery bags, and we'd rather lose circulation in our fingers than walk back to the car twice. The guy waddled toward the entrance, looking like a stressed out octopus, and naturally, everything collapsed at once. One pizza folded in half. Beer cans exploded across the pavement, and the folding chair snapped open directly into his shin with the precision of a revenge attack. Nearby fans started applauding, because honestly, what else do you do at that point? The man just stood there, staring at the wreckage with the hollow expression of someone realizing arrogance really does have consequences, especially when combined with cheap stadium beer. 27. A tourist at a wax museum tried kissing a celebrity statue for a photo and accidentally headbutted it hard enough to knock both of them over, which honestly feels symbolic somehow. The footage looks like a low-budget romantic comedy written by concussed teenagers. She leaned in dramatically, closed her eyes for the perfect selfie moment, and smashed faces with a wax version of a movie star that probably cost more than her car. The statue toppled sideways, she screamed, and museum staff came sprinting in with the exhausted urgency of people who've seen too much. And the woman's first reaction wasn't concern. It was asking if anyone got the picture before security deleted it. That's where humanity is now. We've evolved from cave paintings to emotionally attaching ourselves to blurry photos taken moments before disaster. 28. A guy in a parking garage tried jumping from one moving walkway to another while holding a smoothie, because apparently adulthood is just finding increasingly creative ways to become an insurance statistic. He crouched down like an action hero preparing for destiny, launched himself dramatically, and immediately learned that traction exists for a reason. His feet slipped, the smoothie exploded upward like a dairy-based fireworks show, and he landed flat on his back while strawberry yogurt rained from the ceiling. Nearby, strangers froze completely. Nobody knew whether to help him or call National Geographic, and the man just laid there blinking at the fluorescent lights while pink smoothie slowly dripped onto his shirt like the universe itself was mocking him personally. Honestly, if your final thought before an accident is, "This will look cool," you're probably about 30 seconds away from humiliating yourself publicly. 29. I saw a man try using a leaf blower to dry his hair after getting caught in the rain, which feels less like problem solving and more like a deleted Jackass scene. He stood outside a convenience store, blasting industrial wind directly into his own face while strangers watched in horrified silence. And somehow it escalated. The leaf blower caught his loose hoodie strings and immediately started strangling him like an appliance possessed by pure irritation. The man staggered backwards, spinning in circles, while chips and candy wrappers swirled around him in a tiny convenience store tornado. One employee didn't even react anymore. He just kept mopping the floor with the expression of someone spiritually preparing for retirement. Eventually, the guy shut the blower off and acted like the entire thing was intentional. Sure. Completely normal behavior from a grown adult fighting for his life against landscaping equipment. 30. A wedding photographer caught a groomsman trying to shotgun 3 energy drinks before giving a speech because apparently public speaking now requires the cardiovascular stability of a hummingbird. The man chugged them backstage while bragging about bringing the energy, which is exactly the kind of sentence people say before paramedics become involved. Then he walked onto the dance floor, vibrating like an unplugged refrigerator. The speech started fine for about 12 seconds before his brain accelerated beyond human operating limits. He began sweating aggressively, talking too fast, and somehow transitioned from complimenting the bride to explaining cryptocurrency. Nobody knew what was happening. Grandparents looked frightened. One child started crying. Then the guy's knees buckled and he sat down mid sentence like his operating system crashed unexpectedly. Honestly, caffeine addiction has reached the point where some people are basically beta testing heart attacks recreationally. 31. I watched security footage of a guy trying to sneak into a hotel pool after hours by climbing over the fence with a giant inflatable flamingo around his waist, which already sounds like the universe trying to write satire. Halfway over the fence, the flamingo got stuck, completely stuck. Suddenly, this man was dangling upside down in swim trunks at 2 in the morning while trapped inside pink inflatable plastic like a confused holiday decoration. And instead of quietly accepting defeat, he started whisper screaming for help at his friends, who were laughing too hard to function. Then the hotel motion lights switched on. Instantly, the entire scene looked like police body cam footage from a very disappointing crime spree. The man froze upside down while security guards slowly approached with the exhausted expressions of people realizing they absolutely do not get paid enough for this nonsense. And there you have it, 31 shining examples of humanity treating common sense like it's an optional software update. Somewhere out there right now, another grown adult is probably climbing onto something unstable for a selfie while their friend yells, "Bro, this'll go viral." Let me know in the comments which disaster deserved the gold medal for absolute stupidity. Or tell me the dumbest thing you've ever seen caught on camera, because honestly, the internet somehow keeps getting worse. And if you enjoyed this slow motion parade of bad decisions, hit like, subscribe, and stick around. Humanity is nowhere near finished embarrassing itself.